Hey, everybody. Uh, Welcome. Good afternoon, I guess. It's 1 o'clock here in Colorado. Thanks to Andrew for letting me do this again. I did this in the spring. Back then, I think I was in my wood shop, and now I am in my beer shop, kind of. I do have some spirits here. I got my trusty beer fridge here, so if things really kind of go to crap, I'm just going to start diving into those. But just a little forewarning, I have been kind of mentally preoccupied with some things with our business. We are actually in our last step of our pivot due to COVID, and I kind of liken it to opening a brewery where you have a planned date, and the week before, all the red tape comes come crashing down, and you're so. So this presentation is actually taking from almost like a 2-day course, scrunched down into 4 hours, scrunched down into 40 minutes. So what is it? My name's Jason Gladfelter. I am a conflict management specialist. My personal passion is beer and brewing, and so I'm mixing that with the conflict management skill set. So this presentation is going to be about how to start to strengthen your internal dynamics. And with COVID and the way 2020 is being, this might be a good chance for breweries to kind of regroup and really look at the internal dynamics. Maybe not. I think it's hit and miss. So without further ado, conflict management. So what is conflict? A lot of people think of conflict as very intense, like as far as like war or fighting or something like that. And yes, that is a part of a conflict. Those are also measures of resolving a conflict. War is actually a resolution. It's not a good one, probably the worst, but it is a method. It's a competition method of really going after trying to resolve some sort of conflict. So when I say conflict, interpersonal dynamics, how people interact, whether it's communication, whether it's body language, how they treat each other, stuff like that. Conflict is disagreements, it's in communication, it's in biases and lenses. How we have different experiences, and all this is makes us a very diverse bunch, which is fantastic because diversity. I'm glad diversity is getting more attention in the brewing industry because it's you get ideas, you get skill sets, you get all kinds of stuff from diversity. The challenge is diversity means bringing differences together, and differences in everything, and all perspectives and personalities, interpretation, language, background, yada 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 yada. And so when that comes together, I would very much push for some sort of conflict management in any type of business, really. Also personal, like the kind of intrapersonal conflict management, because I have about 6 voices in my head at one time, so they need to really get together sometimes too, and possibly others do. So how does this work? So how do you get to the conflict? How do you get to the war? How does it escalate? Well, disagreements, we all have them every day, and most of them are no big deal. Some are a little bit bigger deal, and then others are pretty huge. Even the little ones will reside in the back of your mind. They will affect your lens. They'll affect how you hear people, what you think they're saying, and how you see events, and then you interpret that through that disagreement, and these grow. Most they might grow into those minor annoyance, but some can really get out of hand. And by the time people realize it's gone out of hand, their default reaction is, I'm going to sue the rip off of them. And they don't realize that they actually could have some skill sets in place to at least stop the disagreement from escalating further and maybe even de-escalate it. And then once that happens and the passions are died down, you can probably resolve it. It's not a promise. That's why I'm here, because it's tough. When you're in it, man, it is tough. And sometimes you don't realize to ask for help because you think you have it, or you think it's not a big deal. The other side probably thinks it's a huge deal, or vice versa. So this all affects how people interact. And in the brewing industry, personal interaction is huge. I was talking to you, Andrew. I don't remember. 2020. I don't remember who I talked to about what is the biggest challenge for breweries in COVID, and it's the beer is still great. It's people go to breweries to socialize, and that is socialize with each other, with their groups, with strangers, with the staff, even in a parking lot or whatever. So how that translates to how disputes will translate. You can have a disagreement with someone and then lash out at somebody else, totally you're not even a part of that disagreement. And now you got two disagreements. So, what we try to do in the brewing industry is give breweries a bit of help. They can help themselves with some of these disagreements and disputes, and then offer them further help when needed. So what happens when you're in a disagreement? Well, all of these things. Your heart rate goes up. You constantly think about it. Sometimes you lose focus and you start thinking about something else, and then you come back to this disagreement. And especially if you're talking with somebody else, you're saying something and your eyes just kind of glass over and be like, okay, what did Bob say the other day? And you just kind of loss of appetite. You either lash out at people or you kind of curl up and avoid, and just you push those villains down. Like what Bill Burr says, you just push them on down. You don't eat terribly well. Maybe you drink a little bit too much or more. Like I said, I've got the spirits back here backing me up. So, like, what else do you feel like when you're in a disagreement or a dispute, and it's bigger than just a little spat? It's kind of festers. How do you feel? It affects a lot of things. So we try to minimize that at least. So today's aim, bring it down to the brewery level. Want to try to give you some skill sets to be more internally agile and adaptive and functional, and just be more personal. We have a chance to regroup. Your team could be on the same page. You can set an internal vision, alignment. You can actually put in a grievance system for people to vent. I actually have a program about that. Also be comfortable with difference. So I go back to this diversity. Difference is great. It's also uneasy, and some people just they go out of their way to find differences, different foods, different people, different experiences, and some people don't. Right or wrong, no judgment here. It's just the effects of those can really linger. So my kind of philosophy, if you can call it that, very loosely, conflict is the way. That's the Stoic version, kind of. I think they say the obstacle is the path, or something like that. So I'm tweaking it. I have no idea if that's trademarked or not. So I'm going to go with that for now. But conflict gives you opportunities. You'd be like, what? Why do you want conflict? I think we need conflict. Conflict provides an opportunity. If it's managed well. And when I say conflict, I don't mean war. I mean disagreements. A disagreement is a conflict. So I think those are opportunities that we can actually learn, change some things, and then actually be progressive about some things. How it's handled, conflicts can come. They can come quick and they can leave quick. You just have to know when they are. Here we go. So the analogy I use for why we need conflict is your car is on. You're driving your car, right? You the interaction is between the tire and the road. Well, if there's no conflict, there's no friction. If there's no friction, you can't control the car. You can't make it go. You can't steer it, and you can't stop it. When there's ice on the road, there's no conflict. It's you end up in a tree or a ditch or your neighbor's yard or something like that. So conflict can provide grip and perspective, innovation, invention, even paradigm shifts. That's going back to, I think it's Thomas Kuhn's the theory of scientific revolutions. It's paradigm shift is kind of a big word, but so opportunities, corrections, improvements. We can help people if they're managed properly. Mismanaged conflict. Usually, it's maybe I'll get to this later, but people have some reactions. Conflict that is just a way they're raised or they're built or something. It's just kind of their natural default reaction to some conflict. We'll get to that here in a second. So, like I said, a paradigm stretch is a bit, or a paradigm shift is a stretch here. It may not be that far off. So 2020, COVID, and whatever else is coming, asteroids or murder hornets, or can actually provide a way. And that way is to regroup. And most of you have probably done it because it's been, this year has been a decade. So it's been 9 years to maybe adjust. It's not been easy, and it probably won't be easy. The goal here is to help you set up for when it comes back to some semblance of normal. And hopefully that's not next summer. Hopefully that's soon, maybe the spring. So maybe we can realign some work areas, and if you have to rehire staff or new staff, this might help put in your employee handbook. Which, by the way, if you don't have an employee handbook, get one. Spend the $2,000 or whatever on an attorney and get an employee handbook written out. They're kind of important. So, segue music. I want to get some little thing here. Oh yeah, the animation. That's cool. Okay, so your brewery or your business. If you're not in a brewery, this applies to other businesses and families and groups, kind of everything. But for now, it's going to be a business. So the people ingredient. I kind of came up with this a couple of years ago, where some of my good friends are either brewery owners or master brewers or head brewers, and sitting with them drinking beer is some of them are they can relax, but the others are, oh, this is the blah 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 hop, and the malt is this, and I'm like, dude, can you enjoy it? There's a lot of ingredients in beer, and one thing I haven't heard too much of is, who makes it? How is the team? How is the front room? How's the back room? How's the deliveries? All of this stuff. The people ingredient is probably next to water, the most important ingredient in making beer. For a business, of course, that costs. There's a percentage of the budget. There's turnover, lost time, where people are maybe redundancy on some of the tasks, stolen time. Maybe they're disgruntled and they're on their phones or whatever the things are, and they're just not paying attention. Sometimes if disputes get real ugly, the production will suffer. There might be some sabotage. We've seen in the past couple of years some bad PR for some breweries, and rumors start, functionality suffers, and then there's the ethical problem of how do you, if your brewery is the social home for people, but yet people who work there don't feel at home. That's kind of a dilemma. So the metrics of the finance of what a conflict will cost, and you can put this in. You take the wage of your employee or your manager or you, I take it times 15%, which the industry standard of calculating conflicts is between like 10 and 20%. So I use 15. And then take that times hours per week and 50 weeks per year, and you get what a conflict is costing. Example would be $11 an hour, 15%, 35, blah, blah, blah. And you get almost $3,000 this dispute is costing the brewery. And that is usually in either lost time or stolen time, people calling in sick, and you have to fill that shift. Just not focused on production. Production's slower, maybe sales is slower. It could be anything. And rarely does a disagreement affect just that one person. If it's somebody within the brewery, you have to take that times two. And there's another little equation there. So the cost would be, you take the number of people affected, the average wage of those people, and then you get the cost. And like I said, that's just the finance. That doesn't take into account the communication that can suffer. Sales, you maybe not as flexible or as adaptable to some things that come. Now, all of this would not have prevented COVID. So that's it may have helped in how the internal functions of that's a big one to really again. So but the sources of conflict are not necessarily in the workplace. They can come from home. Maybe someone is having disputes with their neighbor, maybe getting a divorce. Perhaps their mortgage is, they can't meet mortgage. So in-laws, there you go. Let's go with that one since it's almost holiday season. Will cause people to be distressed, and that can come to work, and that can affect work. It's not their fault. It happens. We all go through it. Giving them some skill sets in maybe dealing with it, or giving yourself some skill sets to help them through some tough times. Conflicts come from generational, as we can see. I have a smartphone that's pretty stupid, and that's fine with me. I don't do too much on it, but younger generation do a lot on it. Different values. I'm gonna throw some politics at you. Politics. We have different values in politics, and if you haven't noticed, just on Twitter for 5 seconds and then wash your eyes, because if you want diversity, and you'll have diverse political and religious and social values as well. So that comes into play. So there are a lot of sources of conflict that can really spiral out of control. Most of the time, you don't really see it, and it can come back. So conflict management. I developed these 5 pillars of conflict that there are probably more. Actually, there are. These are kind of the big ones that I see in a lot of disputes that kind of erupt and go from just a minor disagreement to just tearing apart of relationship. I will say, like, underneath all of these is the emotional aspect that I mentioned before, like your heart rate goes up and all this stuff. So that affects stuff too. First one is intent versus impact. What you intend to do is not always how it impacts others. And that is in actions, that is in words, and that goes the other way around too. How you're impacted by something may not be somebody's intent, and that is that's a big one, because if you don't know why somebody did something or said something, your brain starts to perform a narrative. You start to construct it, and you want to know. You want to assign. Going down to the bottom one, you want to assign a motivation, and then once you do that, everything that person says or does is based on that created narrative that is probably incorrect. Also, the other way, if you're impacted by something, or if you impact somebody else and they think of it as a from their own narrative. Keep that in mind that, okay, wait a minute, maybe they saw this differently than how I intended, and clarify it and say, hey, if it affected you in a negative way, I'm sorry, and let's see if we can explain it and go from there. Toxicity, again, if you dare, go to Twitter or any social media. Yes, I don't want to put Twitter under the bus, but it's there. Toxicity is bad language, it's name calling, it's anything that is not really connected to the dispute itself. And the one I see the most is the last jab, where someone is either walking away or getting ready to hang up and they say something, just like, oh, I'm going to get them, and you stick the knife in and twist it a little bit. That doesn't help much at all. It might feel really good to do it, and you just want to give them something. When we were training some of the state troopers in Colorado, some people want to save face when they're talking with the police, and like they have control issues, or they lash out at some of the troopers, and the troopers just want to, it's a personal thing. Like you want to say something smart aleck back to them, and that doesn't go well. So some of them are pretty funny, but it doesn't really help. Position and interest, again, a very common one. The difference is an interest is why you want something, and the position is what you want. So a lot of times we get a little, we focus on the position of what we want. And if it's not given to us, then we create reasons, we create an argument to get what we want, and we lose sight of why we want it, the interest. And could there be another way to get that interest? The position is very has a large gravity to it. We tend to dig in our heels when we want something, and get in kind of we call it entrenched position. And the farther down you go in that hole, the harder it is to come out. And then you have to save face if you're in that hole too deep, because if you come out with a different a different thing you want that would satisfy that interest, it will look like you caved, or you look weak, or your position wasn't that strong. So we kind of get bought into that position. The easiest way to get out of a position, although it's not quite that easy at all, is to really think why you want something. How else can you get it? How is what you want going to satisfy your interest? The best question in the world is why. It's so annoying though, because sometimes you don't have the answer. Well, why do you want this? Oh, well, I didn't think of that. I just thought I wanted it. So watch out for that when it gets into positions, and if something happens, you can't ask, okay, Joe, what is your position and what is your interest? Well, they're probably not going to differentiate the two. So you kind of have to ask a little bit more. You dig without really, digging. Person and problem. I think that's also pretty common and maybe self-explanatory. When you focus on the person and not the problem. Chris Rock, the comedian, said, I talk about what people do. I joke about what they do and not who they are. So that's a huge distinction, although it's very, very subtle. I kind of liken it to if you go up to someone and they have a cast on their arm and you say, well, how did you break your arm? Well, that's focusing on the person's action. Like it kind of implies, why did you break your arm? Like it was intentional. Like you just, and that's really a personal question, not a position problem question. So instead, what happened to your arm, or how did it break? It sounds silly, And it probably is in that instance. That's an example of person and problem. And so when someone does something you disagree with or don't like, try to focus on the problem and not the person and say, you idiot. That's not going to work. Although, again, sometimes it's just fun to say. See, did I get through all these? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So emotions are always going to be there. Do I have it in the next slide? No. I suggest allowing people to vent when they're frustrated. Most of the time when people are yelling at somebody else, they're venting. They're mad at the situation. They're not necessarily mad at you, although maybe they are. But if they're yelling, they're frustrated, and they need to get that out. I try not to take it personally when people are yelling at me. I don't laugh at them, but I understand what they're coming from. Like, it's not really like a comic laugh. It's like, okay, get it out. Okay, let's do it. And then calm down from there. You can't tell people to calm down. You can't tell people to take it easy because it's not a big deal. For them, it is. Whatever the dispute is, it's going to be a big deal. That's why they're venting. So they have to take some time, a day, a couple days or something. Say, okay, we're going to get to this later. I understand you're frustrated. We'll get to this later when we calm down and go that way. People are in dispute. They kind of revert to their conflict styles. And everybody has all of these styles. It's just there's a preferential style that people fall back to, and it may be even contextual and who they're talking with and what the situation is. Excuse me. The first one is avoid. The problem will go away. Well, I'm not going to do anything with it. Just ignore it and we'll be fine. Well, most of the time, the problem is still going to be there. It's not going to go away. You don't gain anything by avoiding. The other side or sides or whoever it is doesn't gain anything because the conflict is still there. It's just put on the back burner, and it's just going to come back to haunt you. There are certain situations where you can avoid, like way back in my graduate studies in conflict resolution at University of Denver, the example given to me by Professor Bob was going down the street at night and there's a dark alley and it's a shortcut home. You go down that dark alley. And he's like, no, that's a good one to avoid. You can go around. So something like that. If it's as dangerous or if maybe you won't get anything out of it anyway, yeah, you could probably avoid it. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just a lot of times it doesn't really solve the conflict. The other one is compete, and this is a common one. This is where you get into the entrenched position, although avoidance you can be entrenched in that as well. When you compete, you're in positional. You want to defeat the other person and do that zero sum, that false dichotomy of if they lose, I automatically win. Or if I win, then they automatically lose. And a lot of times people in competition feel that the other side losing means they win. It's true in sports, but usually it's not true anywhere else because there's more complex issues than scoring a touchdown or a goal or hitting a dinger. So competition is very common and very positional. Again, but sometimes you need it. If you're in a lawsuit or something, you kind of want to win that one, I would think. And the attorney's job is to represent you in winning. And that means the other side got to lose. Is that always the best? Situational, I suppose. Accommodating is giving the other side whatever they ask for. And again, there are certain situations where that's fine. You don't want to get into a big hubbub about something that's very important to them and not all that important to you. The challenge to accommodating is the thought is that you will look weak if you do. You may be taken advantage of later. Keep that in mind because that people will see it that way. Some people, and they want to accommodate on everything, but on certain things, it's a lose-win on your side. If you do that too much, then you'll just be taken advantage of, and conflicts will be very difficult for you to manage. A lot of people talk about compromise. Kind of the attorneys, not all of them, will do settlements or whatnot as a compromise. You give this, I'll give this, and we'll meet in the middle. Well, compromise is lose-lose. You're losing something. So is the other side. Will the conflict be resolved? Maybe. Depends on what you want out of the resolution. If it's a relationship that you want to keep, yeah, perhaps a compromise is the best way to go because you don't want to damage that relationship. If it's not, then maybe you don't want to compromise. People think of it as a win-win, and I guess from certain standpoints it might be. From my standpoint, most of the time it's a lose-lose, and sometimes the arguments and the disputes are set up that their goal is to compromise. You shoot a number way up here so you can meet down here and try to level it out. Sometimes that doesn't really work so well. And the last one is what I would preach would be to collaborate. Not always going to happen. Work with the other side. Go through those lists of the pillars of conflict, the interests and positions and all of that, and try to solve the problem together. The brewing industry has been very collaborative, and it's fairly unique in that way. And that's what I really like about, well, I like the beer too, but I like about the brewing industry is like collaboration. I think I have a collaboration, not litigation bottle still here somewhere, aging unprofessionally. That's the collaboration is, it takes longer. Well, maybe. I guess it depends on how you compete or compromise. It might take longer. It'll take more energy. But usually the solutions are not only solutions, they are sustainable. Like if we go to mediation, we say that mediation, and it's proven in the numbers, is that the solutions through mediation are more likely to be not into by the parties, since they came up with a solution, they're more likely to stick to it. Whereas in an adjudication or a judgment, judge somebody, oh, you got to do this. My party is going to be like, oh, that sucks. I'm not going to do that. So sustainability of a collaborative solution is the best of all the world there. Time is it? We're at 1:34. Good. I think I have 10 minutes. Andrew, where are you? Let me see. Let me go back up and say the steps maybe you can take. If you haven't done this, you guys probably have. What do you want your brewery to be? How would you describe it? I'm talking about internally, like people working with you, not what people see on the outside, although they will translate. Look at your brewery objectively. How do people see it from the outside? How do people see your team and your kind of your work ethic or atmosphere? Those two match what you want it to be and how they see it, and ask your team. It could be anonymous surveys or something like that. Just take a temperature of what's going on in there. If both those things match, sweet. If not, well, we take a look at it and see. Maybe your mission statement is, maybe you don't have one. Maybe it's gone through the ringer in the last several months. And yeah, take a step back and take a look at that. Do you have a vision for your brewery? That's such a vague term. And I guess you could define it the way you want. Do you want to be, the biggest one in the state on the block? Do you want it to be the most friendly? Do you want it to look like a lounge, singer place, or do you want it to be kind of open? Whatever it is. Do others know that vision? Do you know what you're trying to go for? Mission statements, key principles, what you can do, what you want the company to strive for, and how to strive for them, and then daily things that will support that. So going from the bottom up, the path should fit. Makes sense. A mission statement, people statement. Mission statement for the internal dynamics. It could be anything, I suppose. Well, almost anything. I would say be aspirational. You want people to want to strive for it. Be achievable. You don't want them to, to reach for the stars and not give them a ladder. And personal and not intimate. I don't mean like intimate in every personal identity of everybody, but maybe personnel. Maybe that's a better term. To be, you look after your people. So to achieve those things, try to do something every day, get everyone involved, and be tolerant of the differences. Comfortable with the unknown of why somebody did something, or you don't need to know a lot of things. You want to. We all want to. We all want to know why someone did something. Okay, not to know. So, again, you probably have done this. Regroup, gather your team, get some stories, let people vent, and if it's about politics or the economy or beer reviews or Yelp or whatever it is, just let them, have it out. Get a pinata, beat the crap out of something, get it out. And ask if anyone needs help. You don't need to do that in public or in front of everybody else, but just say, hey, I'm here. If you need to write it down, what do you need? No guarantee I can help you with it, but there are resources out there. The brewing industry is fantastic with that, and the kind of the open door policy. Open your head, open your mind, and go from there. Feedback is a little tough. It's tough to give. It's tough to get. What does your team need? What does it want? Is there a complaint system, a grievance system set up? Is it workable? Do you want feedback, or do you think you have to have it because that's what the HR or the handbook says? My personal standpoint is you should want to have feedback, and from most of the brewers I've talked to, they want it, and they want it from their employees. I don't know if they want it from beer reviews so much. I think they seek it out, but I don't. I can tell you some funny stories, but I'm running out of time. So, pre-mortem. Again, it's more of a stoic thing. So, post-mortem is something dies. We find a reason why. Pre-mortem would be like, okay, I've got this project. I'm going to launch it, and then someone asks you or tells you it's already failed, and you're like, why? That's the question. Why? Why did it fail before it even launched? Go through those things. It's not exactly planning for the worst. It's just trying to brainstorm what could happen later. Some people don't like doing that. They think it's negative, and I can totally understand that. So I wouldn't push this too much, but maybe in your head, just think, okay, I've got this new beer or a lineup going, and it failed already. Why did it fail? Was it marketing? Was it the recipe? Was it economy? Graphics? Blah blah blah. Whatever. Just think about it like that. This isn't really necessary as far as conflict management, but I think it helps kind of prepare you for some of the worst stuff. It also helps you brainstorm. And when you're in conflict management and you try to brainstorm solutions, that's where it is. That gives you practice on that. Get the creative juices going. Be flexible and adjust. One of my favorite sayings was if someone ever insulted me or said something, I was like, I guess I'll just pick up all the broken pieces and get my life back together. Like, okay, something broke, you fix it, put it together, or you throw it out and get something else. Conflict happens. I would embrace is kind of a strong word. I would see it as an opportunity. Sometimes you need outside help, me, or sometimes you do need legal counsel, and I'm not going to discourage you from that. And some things really need it, and so I guess I'm not dissuading you from legal counsel, put it that way. So adjust the problem solving, identify the problems, know that a problem is probably a symptom of something else, and that symptom is probably a symptom of something else. Try to dig down a little bit deeper. Not the easiest thing, and it is time consuming, and we don't have a whole lot of time to do that. Educate yourself and try to reduce the damage, and then kind of go from there. Whoa, the new animation. So this is a document. I think I put it up on in the spring, the virtual conference, for download. So this is a little bit a different conflict cost calculator. Has a little bit different percentages, but it gives you an idea. You can kind of tweak it a little bit here and there. The cost per staff, usually, especially if there's two staff members involved in a dispute, it's going to involve a manager. So you got to take them into consideration. They have to take time out to deal with it. And I think I could put this on the Facebook page for craft beer professionals. If it's not already there, it might already be there. So I guess initial steps, quick. Become aware, admit and accept mistakes, changes. Go through those 5 pillars. Know your conflict styles. I would say recognize your conflicts. Know them that's a stretch because you don't. Sometimes they're contextual. There is something called a Proverbs exercise. Maybe I can find it. It's a series of paired questions, Proverbs, and you answer each one, and then you add up the totals, and it gives you your conflict style. Usually it's like 50 one thing, 40 another thing, 10 another thing, and whatever. Sometimes people are really balanced on it. And again, that could be contextual. But anyway, understand core issues, symptoms, acknowledge them, try not to be defensive, and allow for venting. Awareness, I'm just going to put that up there. Try to be aware of when disputes happen, disagreements. It's tough to hear a disagreement, and in every disagreement you jump in and try to resolve it right then. Probably not very practical. So just keep these in mind. These are kind of some of the red flags. Okay. Through it. Questions, comments, and insults. I don't see anybody in the private chat. Am I on? 43 minutes, looks like. I'm going to stay here just for a sec, just in case someone has some. And if you have an insult, make it good. I love them. This is juice, by the way. That's my. I am on Twitter, even though I kind of bash it. A couple of years ago, I told my business partner, I'm like, wouldn't it be great if there was a mechanism that you can send the same statement to everybody? And he's like, yeah, Twitter. Like, oh, cool. Maybe I should get on that. But you could DM me through there, Beer Mediation, or email me at pubdialogue@gmail.com. I am setting up a new website. Hopefully, I don't have the huge expertise in doing that, so it's taking a little bit longer. And I'll get it out there. I'll put it on Craft Beer Professionals and whatnot. But you can always email me or DM me on Twitter. I think for the next month or so, especially when the holidays kick around, I'll be more available for free consultation, limited, of course. But if you have a situation that you just need some advice on, or clear anything up in this presentation, let me know. I'll be here. So, I guess it's 45 minutes. Okay. I guess I will log out. Do that. Is there something on Facebook I need to do? I don't think so. Okay. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Be safe and have a great 2020. Hopefully.